$8,000, which is $500,000 to $100,000 more than the 2 cars that I drove.
Mm-hmm. What are some of your favorite hacks that you've used, or maybe some hacks that the average person might not know about? I know you talk about income accelerators and that kind of thing. What are those? Tell us about that.
So it's like, I think it kind of ties into, I mean, there's 5 different income accelerators that I typically talk to, but looking back on my journey, when I think about accelerated learning, and I definitely came from a scarcity broke mindset household. So like my dad, I don't think he even owned any investments. My mom, like she owned some investments, but it was like fixed annuities and like life insurance stuff, mm-hmm. right? When I think about like this through my own journey, when I saw the most growth, it's because I was willing to invest in myself. Mm-hmm. And it's so cliche. You hear that all the time, investing in yourself, you get the best ROI. It's like, it's true, but like, what does that look like exactly? And some of the little ways initially, like accelerated learning, I mean, it's like picking up a book, and reading a lot of business books. And I just started reading like Rich Dad, Poor Dad, going back to like Crush It, Gary Vaynerchuk, $100 Startup, Chris Gillibo, just books like this that I was just very curious. Mm-hmm. I was curious to understand how people are growing businesses, how people are building wealth, because that was something I was not exposed to. Mm-hmm. In addition to that, that was also like just listening to podcasts and going to conferences, buying online courses, investing into looking at me getting the CFP designation. Like I looked at that as like, oh, I just wanted to like look like I was legit, but also too, like I learned a lot just by going through that process. Mm-hmm. That's one way, and an easy way, right? Because like when you talk about investing in yourself, like a lot of people are like, man, I'm broke, I don't have any money. It's like, well, how much does it cost to buy a book? You want to go to the library or buy it used off Amazon? I mean, you there's ways that you can learn. Podcasts, last time I checked, you can download a lot of podcasts and not have to pay anything. Mm-hmm. So that's one way. Another way, when I think about the largest investments where I've got some of the best return, it wasn't like me buying some stock or mutual fund. 2 examples I'd like to share. One was, and this was a big deal back then. I think last time you and I had a call, you mentioned like how much you spent on your website design. Mm-hmm. There was a time, like if you would have told yourself 5 years ago how much you spent on a website design, like you probably would have like puked on yourself.
For sure. Absolutely.
And I remember because my first website, I think I spent like $500, mm-hmm. and that's what I had for a couple years. And then I paid somebody to give me some sort of like custom header, mm-hmm. and that was like another $500. And that's what I had for the first couple of years. Mm-hmm. And going to a conference, I ended up sitting next to these guys that were going to the same conference. They were graphic designers, had their own like agency. And I ended up deciding to work with them, and they gave me a quote where they were going to give me a brand new web design, and it was like $8,000. Mm-hmm. And at that time, like prior to that, I remember in college, I drove a 1996 Pontiac Grand Am, red 4-door with a spoiler.
Yeah, I remember those.
And then after that, I drove my grandmother's 1998 Chevy Lumina that I inherited when she passed away.
I remember those too.
Which I think I ended up selling. Yeah. Which I ended up selling. And I think I sold both of those for around, I think it was like $6,500, maybe $7,500, mm-hmm. right? So in my brain, like kind of like the whole scarcity mindset, broke mindset, I'm like, wait, you want me to pay $8,000, which is $500,000 to $100,000 more than the 2 cars that I drove. Mm-hmm. Like it was just really hard for me to, I was really excited though. I really wanted to do it, but I'm like, it just felt like this is just doesn't feel right. And I remember my wife, praise her for like actually giving me the go ahead. So I had wrote a book called Soldier of Finance, and it was getting ready to come out like in the next few months. So the thought was like, man, if I have like a book that's getting ready to publish, I want a website that looks like I'm legit, you know? So we pulled the trigger, and I ended up spending $8,000 on this website design. And one of the coolest things happened, like within 90 days of spending that money, because of the affiliate promotion, all the ads that we had on the site, I made all that money back, like within, I think it was less than 90 days.
Wow, that's awesome.
I mean, it was like the quickest return on investment I think I'd ever seen on anything for that matter. I'm like, I was just blown away.
Yeah.
If you don't mind, I'd like to share another one, because I think it's something that is hard for a lot of people to understand, especially when you start thinking about investing in yourself. And that is hiring, whether it be a coach, a consultant, a mentor, maybe paying for a mastermind group. Because sometimes like when you know, for me, at least with a website design, at least I can kind of see what it is. Like I can't hold it. I can't put it in my pocket, but at least I can like go online and see what I got. Yeah. But when it comes to like coaching or consulting, like it's hard because you're not getting anything tangible. Like you're not going to the mailbox and waiting for that package to arrive. So another major investment, this would have been like about probably a year after all this, was hiring or paying for a coaching program. I briefly mentioned I was in strategic coach for 5 years, but the very first time, whenever I was introduced to it, it was like, I think it was about the same price. It was like $8,000 to do this coaching program. And prior to that, like, I'm like, I'd never even thought about hiring a coach. Like, I just knew that I was at a stage in my business where I just felt stuck and I just felt like I needed something. I just didn't know what it was. And I knew that the guy had hired me at my former financial planner, guy hired me as a junior broker back in the day. He told me once that he'd hired a business coach. And I remember when I heard that in my first like year or two of being a financial planner, like it didn't make sense to me. Like, you hire a business coach, like to do what?
Yeah.
I get like hiring a basketball coach or like a fitness coach, but like a business coach. When I talked to him, I end up calling him like, hey man, you told me you hired a business coach. Can you just tell me like, what were you thinking? What was the angle behind it? And he's like, man, it helped me think about my thinking, getting more clear on what I wanted to accomplish. And it just really helps. So like I heard that, I'm like, okay, I'm in, I'm going to do it. So I paid this $8,000. I did it for a year, and this was me going to 4 sessions for the entire year. So I go up to Chicago one day every quarter. In addition to that, I got to talk to a program advisor once a quarter. And like, that's what I got for like $8,000. And what I love sharing about the stories, because so I did it for a year. I'll ask you, how much do you think my income increased after doing that for a year?
Oh man, I don't know. 10%. Let's go with that.
It didn't go up at all. I was completely flat.
Okay. That was my second guess.
So if I was flat, technically I lost money because I spent $8,000 and I didn't make any more money than I had the year before. So what had happened during this entire year was they were introducing me to different ways to approach business, different ways to approach life, and really rewiring like just my mindset on all these different things. And I'm kind of stubborn when it comes to change. So I fought a lot of them. I incorporated some, but I fought a lot of it. So that first year really was just like rewiring how I was thinking, how I approached things. Fast forward, so I signed up for another year because somebody told me like that had done this program before, like if you're going to do it for at least 3 years. Like do it for 3, don't just do it for a year. So I signed up again for the second year, another $8,000, signed up again for the third year, $8,000. So now I've got $24,000 into it, not including hotels, travel, and everything else, right? So when I started, I was making about $250,000 a year. After year one, still making $250,000. By the end of the third year, I won't ask you. By the end of the third year, my revenue had almost tripled.
Crazy.
I think it was like $730,000 by the end of that third year.
And what happened exactly? Like, why did that? That's a big jump in 1 year.
It was a huge jump. And what ended up happening was like I understood delegating, outsourcing. I mean, at least I thought I did, right? So all I can tell you is that what I learned a lot was understanding what my unique ability was. And your unique ability is defined as what is your God-given talent that you flourish in, that gives you energy that you could do all day, every day. But most importantly, you get paid a lot of money to do it. And that was one of the key principles of this program, was identifying what is your unique ability and then fighting like hell to stay in that realm as often as you can. So that meant I had to start removing a lot of different tasks, a lot of responsibilities, a lot of things that I felt like, because this is really funny. Prior to that, I was the one that was scheduling appointments with my clients. I don't know why I was doing it. I just that's what I started with. And so like, I'm finally realizing, man, like when you call a doctor office, like in schedule an appointment, like you're not talking to the doctor, you're talking to the reception. So I hadn't even hired, I think during that process, I finally hired an office manager. I started hiring key people for the site. That's when I brought on a business partner that understood SEO more than I did, and really let go of a lot of things that I felt that I needed to have control in. And that was hard.
Oh, I'm sure.
But then that freed up so much time that I could focus my creative energy on the things that I cared about.
Yeah.